In this presentation, we will be discussing about Notre-Dame Cathedral. We'll cover topics on the architect, the historical context, the architecture typologies, and lastly, fun facts about the Notre-Dame Cathedral.
There are many architects of the Cathedral of Notre-Dame, the first being John de Chelles. Chelles was known to be one of the first architects on the Notre-Dame, and we can see this because his name was transcribed on the south transept to commemorate his death. Chelles was known to be a master builder of his time, and he focused on the north transept design and construction. He also worked on the south side of the cathedral, and he was also known to be responsible for the architectural concepts such as the large stained glass bay windows that we can see adorned on the Notre-Dame. Although there is not much known about Chelles, his impact is still seen today throughout the cathedral. The next architect brought onto this project was known as Pierre de Montreuil. He was a famous architect during this time in France and worked on many famous cathedrals and churches. His construction methods helped make the cathedral what it is today, such as the support fallout ribs, which inevitably made the cathedral supported straight from the ground. He also enlarged the nave and the aisles and worked on the apses and arms of the transepts. He is a reason why the Notre-Dame is known as a Gothic-style architecture due to his details and design philosophies. He is also known as a master of works of cathedrals in Paris. Pierre de Chelles was known to be the next architect to take over. He is known to be either the son or the nephew of John de Chelles. After Pierre de Montreuil's death, Chelles took over. He mainly worked on the chapels and the apses, and also the flying buttresses. Before his death, he also worked on the rood screening and the detailed decoration at the end of the choir. After his death, other architects took over to finish the design and construction of the Cathedral of Notre-Dame. After the Middle Ages construction and design of the Cathedral of Notre-Dame, the cathedral underwent a 19th century renovation. The first architect on this project was Jean-Baptiste de Lesseps. There is not much known about him, but he was a French architect during this time and a master in restoration. He restored many cathedrals before the Notre-Dame in Paris. The next architect brought on to the restoration of the Cathedral of Notre-Dame was known as Eugène Emmanuel Violet-le-Duc. He was also a French restoration architect, and he attempted to preserve Notre Dame's history. He was, however, criticized for his work. However, he studied medieval architecture and old plans from original constructions of the Notre Dame and dedicated to restoring the history that was in the Notre Dame. He also wrote a dictionary of French architecture that detailed his design philosophy. He looked at old drawings and had a detailed and thorough analysis about medieval architecture.
In this section, we will be discussing the history of Notre-Dame Cathedral and why it was built. First off, the Notre-Dame has survived many events, including the French Revolution in the 1970s, where as part of the de-Christianization efforts, Notre-Dame was temporarily turned into a temple of reason, who was a pagan goddess. Secondly, the Paris Commune of 1871, where revolutionaries planned to burn Notre-Dame Cathedral but ultimately abandoned the plan. Then World War I and World War II. Lastly, the devastating fire in April of 2019. It has been on construction for 5 years now since the fire and will be reopened to the public on December 8th of 2024, as mentioned in their website. Now we're going to discuss the historical context of Notre-Dame Cathedral. It was constructed over the course of 2 centuries, from the 12th to the 14th century, with modification made in the 18th century and major restoration projects in the 19th century, which marks the transition from the Romanesque to the fully developed Gothic vocabulary. Now, the construction of Notre-Dame Cathedral. Its construction began in the 1160 under the supervision of Bishop Maurice de Silly, and it was completed by 1260. But before it was a cathedral, it was a Roman temple, then a Carolingian church, which is a Romanesque church. It was demolished and recycled to build it. The Bishop of Sully decided to rebuild it in the French style, as the Gothic was known before the 18th and 19th centuries. Its central spire was added during the restoration in the 19th century, replacing the original, which had been completely removed in the 18th century because of instability. And the two massive early Gothic towers crown the western facade, which is divided into 3 stories, and it has its doors adorned with fine early Gothic carvings. So why was the Notre-Dame built? It was commissioned by King Louis VII, who wanted to be a symbol of Paris' political, economic, intellectual, and cultural power at home and abroad. The city had emerged as the center of power in France and needed a religious monument to match its new status. My personal reflection on the historical context of Notre-Dame is the importance of preservation. I believe that historical buildings like Notre-Dame Cathedral are more than just structures. They are symbols and representations of the collective history and culture, and that the preservation and restoration of important historical buildings is crucial for maintaining our cultural identity and heritage, and that the fire that damaged Notre-Dame Cathedral in 2019 was a tragedy, but it also provided an opportunity to highlight the importance of preservation and restoration efforts.
The Notre-Dame is notoriously known for its revolutionary Gothic architecture. Let's discuss why its typology is so revolutionary. One of the most extraordinary features is the facade. So the facade includes intricate sculptures that depict biblical figures and events. It only emphasizes the idea that architecture is always telling a story, even if it's just a plain wall, or if it's the entire Cathedral of Notre-Dame. Flying buttresses were groundbreaking in Gothic architecture, allowing for taller walls and larger windows by redistributing the weight of the structure. This innovation enabled the cathedral's soaring height and the use of many stained glass windows. Gargoyles, which some may remember from the movie of Hunchback of Notre Dame, are a fascinating yet terrifying sculpture to pass by. Although they have both good and cruel symbolism applied, they were seen as mythological power to fend off evil. However, they were also used as a reminder of the torments of hell. Again, both terrifying and fascinating creatures. Not only did they have mythological symbolism, but they were also very practical. The word gargoyle comes from the French word gargouiller, which means to gargle, which is a perfect reflection of its purpose since they were used for draining roofs of rainwater. Let's talk a little bit about the interior of Notre-Dame. So the interior is just as stunning as well as it is practical. It features a grand nave, detailed rib vaults, which were used to support the weight of walls, ceilings, or roofs, and tall columns that gave a great sense of space and height. This was all in an attempt to reach the heavens, perhaps not as literally as the Tower of Babel, but surely spiritually. At its center, the choir and high altar are decorated with beautiful carvings and artwork. The amazing acoustics make the cathedral a true masterpiece. The pointed arches in the Notre-Dame Cathedral was a greatly innovative architectural typology seen in Gothic architecture. In contrast to the round arches from the Romanesque era, pointed arches allowed for taller, more expansive structures by effectively distributing weight upwards, allowing for thinner walls and larger windows. This was a key aesthetic for Gothic architecture since, once again, the goal was to convey a sense of verticality and reaching towards the heavens. All in all, Notre-Dame Cathedral is a prime example of Gothic architecture, featuring a design focused on Christian worship that integrates architecture, sculpture, and acoustics into a unified total work of art.
I'll be talking about a fun fact about the building of Notre-Dame that is located in Paris. The doors of Notre-Dame of Paris were made by a man named Visconnet. He was the creator of the metal artwork that you see in the doors. There is a legend dating back to the 13th century that the doors of Notre-Dame are cursed, and it is believed that Visconnet sold his soul to the devil in order to create the beautiful metal artwork that you can see in the door. With the type of tools that were used back then, it would have been hard for anyone to make the beautiful metal artwork like Visconnet did for the doors of Notre-Dame. It didn't help that a few days later he died after he made them. Notre-Dame are cursed. Because of the rumors, the doors of Notre-Dame can only be opened at 8 a.m. and if people come up in earlier, they might be able to listen to the locks of the doors open. Another fact about the doors of Notre-Dame is that they were able to survive the fire that burned down pieces